mentioned, gosh, we're neighbors, that had a good feeling to them, because there was very little we had in common, with them being a denomination and a traditional church and stuff. Agree to fully cooperate in a detailed background check. That's the norm. Expect it. Yeah. Okay, so let's come back to this first page here. If you were going to mention 3 things in your cover letter, what would you hit? Can you find the 3 things they're emphasizing? And I think. Mm-hmm. 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 Not specifically one leader, because of the way they were and how they were leading and missions and so forth. So it seems like they may start with one person, but they're trying to expand to make Good. Yeah. Patrick. Oh, sorry.
Is it safe to assume, whenever you're reading things like this, that you should kind of read it like when you're looking for houses, like there's certain words that you should know that actually have a different connotation?
Yeah, I think that's really wise. Now, you guys to also remember that these were put together by volunteer committees, search committees, and they may not know what they're doing. So they're not as educated or as professional in making their job description as a realtor would be.
Hence the lawsuits.
But like, in your experience...
They had to get everything that everyone wanted in that committee in that sentence. Yes?
But in your experience, are there like certain key phrases that you would know would be, like, this is what this actually means? Kind of like, cozy means small.
Yeah. As we talk, I'll think about that.
Great potential means it's in bad shape.
Yeah, right.
Diversified wiring.
Well,
diversified musical styles means they're fighting about old music and new music.
Now, see that as we were reading through, yeah, and that is something. What is blended? Does that mean everything's done in a mediocre way? The traditional stuff's not really traditional. The contemporary stuff's not really contemporary. It's, sometimes blended means you put it in a blender.
It does ask you to bring the. What does it say? It says something about.
It does emphasize and incorporate fresh current music into all worship services.
Exactly.
Which implies that it's not in all worship services, and that maybe they're able to expect some music.
Could that be the leader? They want someone with leadership to accomplish this. Yeah.
Also able to engage multi-generation groups.
Right.
So you can't just be relevant to them.
Now let's put the church size in our look too. 250 to 500. That's the church size in the categories of churchjobs.net. Yeah.
That's on normal service.
No, it's when everyone else counts and when the preacher counts. Yeah.
This many members.
So, Tim, you're going to make a comment. What was it?
I was just going to say that two of the heaviest words that I see in there are demonstrate flexibility. Because that pretty much means they're going to bend you backwards.
No chubbies.
Or does it mean they've had someone in the past that wasn't?
I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I had my first job description actually had one line on it that said "fill in the cracks." And what does that mean?
What do you mean?
What the crap does that mean?
I think it meant
the
that
things where the other ministers are dropping stuff.
that there were places where every pastor did things out of their job description to help the church that needed someone to do that. For a whole summer, I turned on the sprinklers once a day because we didn't have a custodian, and I said, I'll do it.
And you wanted to play in the sprinklers.
Yeah. It was a stupid thing. I shouldn't have said that because I hated doing it. But anyway, it was in Southern California though, so if you didn't turn the sprinklers on Wednesday, Thursday everything would be dead.
I would have gone and bought a timer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and by the time you turn on the water Wednesday and Thursday, by Friday there's no water. So,
Yeah. Shall we go off of that onto another topic? Yeah, but your point is good about.
Also, they say flexibility in developing and implementing musical ministries both within the church and outreach ministries to the community. So that's an expectation that that is different because sometimes we expect to go in and be the worship minister for the church.
Right.
And this implies that they're expecting you to do other stuff, whether it's county fairs or community events. Like I know our church does, we tell you to worship at Relay for Life kind of things. And so if you're not okay with that, then
Right.
that might be an issue.
I've had
And
a
there's-
job that not only was it music ministry, but it was also slash youth or children's ministry. But youth is children's ministry. And I was like, you know what? I'm not a children's minister.
You need to figure that out. Right.
I don't even want to go in and try to act like I'm a children's minister because I'm not. You know.
Yeah.
What?
He said, I hate
See, Patrick wouldn't be in that job either.
I like rational children.
Certain children. Okay, now you have to decide. You've done a good job at looking at this job description, and you guys are insightful. I really like that. A lot of these questions are things that you would put back in an interview, okay? But right now our task is to write the cover letter. I want each of you to think through and pick one or two things that you would mention in the cover letter. In other words, you're going to say, please consider me for your position of music ministry leader, which was listed on churchjobs.net. And now I want you to tell me 2 or 3 reasons that I should look at you. And you're going to glean them from this. And we'll start with Miriam, because she's smiling.
Okay. 3 things that I would pick out to like restate in the. I would definitely restate something about how much I love Jesus and the biblical foundations behind it. Because I think one of the first things that you should look for is somebody who's firmly planted in their faith.
And they mention that.
They can effectively lead the congregation to that place.
Okay, so that's one. Let's just each pick 2 things.
And then I would also say something about the musical abilities. Having the background for it, especially since the degree is considered a worship music degree, not just a performance degree. I would talk about how we've had like this class, music ministry class, the different, and like having the theory and the sight singing and being able to teach that to other people.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, you picked that out well. Good. I think that someone reading your cover letter would see their job description. Patrick, please.
Well, talk about the Great Commission. I would probably I was very interested in this church, but I read some scripture and kind of talk about like my philosophy in relation to the Great Commission and like what I like to look at. And then we talk about probably some job experience, like not like go into a lot, talk about like kind of flexibility and get out. I think that's great.
Yeah. Missy?
I think I would mention, they say a bold and confident worship style, and I think mentioning worship style, you can pretty much encompass a lot of what they're asking about in the worship style, whether you can engage a multi-generational group, your blended style, the different places you have led worship, whether it be small churches or big churches or youth events, or you can also kind of touch on the outreach in that too. Experiences I've had with Crossroads, the choir going out and singing in the community and mission trips and stuff like that. But I've also mentioned, I think just my love for Jesus and my passion to just be more like him, and that's what's important.
Good. Zach, please. Yeah, everyone's answers are correct and different. Isn't that interesting?
I think I would note that since a pretty young age, I've planned and led worship services with congregations that I really like. And that my previous youth ministry experience had me very involved with planning and teaching. So that was a place to be.
Good. Tim.
I would probably begin by talking about the chapters they mentioned from First Timothy, because even as recently as this summer at camp, I've heard several discussions on that, and I'm assuming that pointing out grammatical errors is not good to an employer.
Correct.
And then, clearly my next move would be to describe how my humility outweighs that of everyone else around me.
Of course.
I've actually, when I was hiring tech directors and would get, 70 resumes after putting it out, there were people that were too sure of themselves that turned me off.
In the resume or
in the cover letter mostly. I'm your man. I know you can't hire anyone better equipped for this job than me, that type of a thing. And,
bold.
yeah, and it might work if you're selling copiers. But it sure didn't work for me. And the committee I was working with in the search, a lot of times I'd double check with them and they'd say, yeah, that's kind of. So.
And that's where I think it's frustrating living in this capitalist Western society, because they tell you how to write a resume. You cover yourself up and put yourself up to be this huge person who's perfect for the job, and maybe exaggerate things and stuff. And so that's what our culture tells us about how to do a resume, how you go out and get a job and fight for it. And that's not always compatible with the church. So it's just weird. I think writing a ministry resume is inherently weird.
It is a little bit. And the weirdest thing is when you get to the part of negotiating salary. You know what I mean? And as we get closer and talk about interviewing and stuff, I'll talk about my bend on that anyway. There's nothing unhumble about objectively telling what you're capable of doing. Jesus often described himself in very lofty ways. His title, the Son of Man, that's a reference back to Isaiah, which declared him as the Messiah. He said, I am the good shepherd. So Jesus himself would objectively say things that he was capable of doing. And I think that that's not Antichrist-like. But I don't think you want to stretch the truth. By no means do you want to get a job you're not qualified for. Then the pain really starts, So that's a good point, though. It does make you itch a little bit. Jason, did you talk about what two things you'd hit on this letter?
No, I didn't.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I think Tim just did the thing you thought he said.
Yeah, and then the humility part, because,
Right.
well, it reeked of him.
His cover letter is all about him.
Yeah.
But I would copy off of that a little bit and talk about the first thing, because they included a scripture reference and said that